Well, come on, all of you big strong men. Uncle Sam needs your help again. Got himself in a terrible jam way down yonder in Vietnam. Put down your books and pick up a gun. We're gonna have a whole lot of fun. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. The next
The Vietnam War lasted from 1963 to 1975. It was one of the first most controversial wars in American history. The United States government viewed the war as a way to prevent the communist takeover of South Vietnam. This was part of a policy which aimed to stop the spread of communism. My dad, Mark Warner, was born on October 28, 1957, the oldest of three. His dad served in the military for 5 years during the Korean War. Although my dad wasn't involved with the war, he was exposed to the drastic change that came with the war. My dad, like most kids his age, didn't show interest in joining the army.
Not during that period of time. It was anti-government. It wasn't something to do. You couldn't trust the government. So it wasn't patriotic to do it. It was, in my peer group, was stupid to follow to do what someone told you to do. You challenge that thought process.
After my dad's junior year of high school, he was turning 18, so I asked if he had any worries about being drafted.
Being 18?
Probably up until coming into my senior year, the war was still going on.
But once it got up to it?
Up to then I was thinking, those are the conversations your grandfather and I had.
Okay.
Regards to enlisting or not, and that's when I told him I wasn't. I was going to go to college, and he said, well, you're going to be in the ROTC, and I said, no, I'm not. So, I mean, it was, to that point in time, that was the conversation. But yes, as you got into high school and sophomore year, neighbors around, people going to Vietnam, and some not coming back because they were killed.
Because my grandpa served in the military before Vietnam, during wartime my dad used to tell me about how it was different living at home with him. So I asked him what it was like.
I remember hearing him talking about...
Well, he was very patriotic. I mean, he served in the military himself, so he thought it was a person's responsibility to serve and protect the country whenever and wherever the government sent you. And up until that point in time, that probably was the fact. So, but we went to war in the past, so there were declared wars. Even the Korean conflict wasn't really a war either. It was a conflict between North and South Korea. Mm-hmm. Again, that was part of the domino effect created by the Eisenhower administration.
My dad was politically active at the time, so I asked him what his thoughts were behind President Lyndon Johnson not running for his second term.
Well, he lost the middle class. Walter, it was the middle class people in the United States. They trusted him. He was like a relative. So as soon as he said that, then they started challenging.
So it was pretty easily swayed over towards Nixon.
Well, he just gave his opinion on what he was seeing in Vietnam, and that's where Johnson then realized if Walter Cronkite didn't believe in him, no would the middle class American. So that's why he didn't run, because he no longer had the support.
That's interesting.
But Lyndon Johnson took over a problem that Kennedy couldn't get out of, that was started by Eisenhower.
My dad brought up Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite was a big-time news anchor for CBS at the time, and he would do his news from Vietnam. My dad said that in a way, Walter Cronkite put the idea of that this war was a waste of time and effort into the protesters' minds. After Johnson pulled out of the election and Nixon won, I asked my dad what his opinions of Nixon were.
Think of it.
My opinion of is he wasn't to be trusted when he was vice president of Eisenhower, and some of the comments he made about communism in his presidential election in 1960 and 68. He basically, in my opinion, won because Robert Kennedy was assassinated.
As the war escalated, so did the anti-war movement back home. I asked my dad what he recalled from the protests.
Did you hear of anything?
Oh yeah, there was bombings on University of Oregon campus.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you remember anything specific?
There was just a bomb that went off in one of the buildings on campus.
Do you remember when?
I don't know. It could have been 68, 69. It was during a lot of the uprising against the military. So basically, the students, what I later learned, the University of Oregon removed the ROTC,
What was
the Reserve Officer Training College.
that building got bombed?
Well, it was not that where the ROTC was in, just a building in general was bombed. But a lot of the protest was against individuals serving in the government armed forces, that they didn't believe in what they believed in serving their country. So they openly abused them and verbally abused them.
How so?
Just yelling and screaming at them and throwing things at them. That they were murderers for killing Vietnamese and other people. So it was just during that period of time when the country was split based on what they'd always had been growing up, that the United States always goes to war and wins the war. This conflict, Vietnam conflict, was not well received. It didn't have 100% participation and support of the United States.
This was surprising to me. After doing more research on these bombings, I found that during the 1969 through 1970 school year was a hectic period of protest for the university. The ROTC, or Reserve Officers Training Corps, was the site where tensions grew at the university. The changed atmosphere in Eugene was the place for both nonviolent protests as well as escalating violence. The University of Oregon witnessed sit-ins, arson, vandalism, and National Guard intervention during this period. Go Ducks, huh? After calling out Miss Wolf about who won the war, I had to get my dad's opinion.
There was more of a.
I think they lost the war. They'll say it was a stalemate.
So you don't.
I think in the day they did lose. They said there was a stalemate because they peacefully got to withdraw out of there.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it was North Vietnam won. So I wouldn't say it was an even Steven or it was a stalemate. It was, we lost. At the end of the day, we lost.
You don't think?
In the United States, the older generation is upset because usually they've gone off to war and came back victorious. So these military folks coming home weren't coming home to a parade or great job, you won the war. You're coming home to
Everyone pissed off.
unsupportive war.
Yeah.
They were upset because now they probably lost their belief in the government. Some lost, family, either from divorce or anger for being in the war. So there's a lot of conflict going on in there. There wasn't a lot of support to businesses.
Thank you for watching, and go Ducks.